Betty Sutton looked around the bar. She had done this many times before, but she was always worried that she would meet someone familiar. The chances of this were slim since she chose the meeting place half an hour away from her area. It didn't hurt to be careful. Betty didn't want to meet people she knew. She didn't want them to tell her husband where she was. Travis was busy tonight, so this was the perfect opportunity. She usually scheduled her dates during daytime hours when Travis was at work. Betty loved Travis and would never do anything to jeopardize their marriage. She intended to grow old with him and spend their golden years traveling and visiting their grandchildren. She knew everything about him and was sure that she knew her husband better than he knew himself. But they were stuck in a rut. Travis hadn't seen it yet, but it was there. Betty knew every marriage goes through ups and downs. Her aunt and uncle divorced for this reason. Modern marriage is different from what our ancestors experienced. There's no longer a need to fight or work hard. People live longer and are more isolated than ever before. In the old days, people lived on plots of land and could be separated from their neighbors by distances. Even then, everyone gathered regularly at churches or other social events. In the modern era, people live closer to each other but often do not know their neighbors' names or communicate with them. People who live next to each other for years and never speak to each other. The modern era has also brought with it a degree of flexibility and morality. Betty loved Travis and didn't want their marriage to end. She didn't see anything wrong with casual affairs. This only added urgency to her relationship with her husband. This did not threaten their marriage. She even had rules for what she did and how she did it. The first rule was that there were no repeat visits. She only met once, so there was no danger of emotional attachments. It was only one night, and she only felt those feelings for her husband. The second rule was that any intimacy she had was never something she hadn't already done with Travis. He made love to her, so she would never replace him or hold him back if she wanted to try something new. If it didn't hurt her, it had to be Travis. The third rule was that nothing could replace Travis. Her marriage was the most important thing in her life. If she was planning to do something or go out with someone and Travis came home, she would go to him. She would return home immediately if Travis called. Travis came first. She never did anything at home. She wouldn't disrespect her husband. Betty wasn't going to do this forever. Travis tried hard to get a promotion. They would have more time to devote to each other. She would start doing things to bring the spark back into the bedroom. She would stop blaming Travis for her lack of interest in sex. It would be unfair to both of them, so Betty simply took on some of Travis's responsibilities. It's not that Travis can't do it, he just has a lot on his plate. When they do have time to relax, it's great. Betty thinks back to just 4 months ago when they went to Hawaii. It was the best time of her life. She also noticed that many women were paying a lot of attention to her husband. Betty used Craigslist to meet people. She never used her real name or posted an ad herself. She only responded to ads from men looking for long-term relationships. She knew that men looking for casual or quick hookups were predators. It seemed mean, but they could refuse. None of them ever did. Betty also never searched for men on her home computer. She went to the library and used one of their free public computers. She created a different email address and never accessed that account at home or on her cell phone. She was still nervous. You can't be too careful. What if she doesn't love me? Gary Lynch asked for the third time. Gary, you're a great guy. You just need to. Travis replied, I'm sure she'll love you. She agreed to meet you, and you sent her a photo. If she didn't like you, she wouldn't agree to meet you. Travis shook his head. He was glad he didn't have to deal with the problems Gary went through. Travis met his wife Betty in college, and they've been together ever since. They raised 2 children who are now in college. Travis was still madly in love with Betty. She was no longer young, but he loved her more for it. He remembered sitting on their bed while she stood in front of the mirror and discovered the first wrinkles around her eyes or the first gray hair. They missed dinner at the restaurant, but it was AITA night the next morning. Travis asked her about his car. Betty asked him, "Are you thinking about buying another Mustang?" 003 Mustang SVT Cobra with all the upgrades. This car makes almost 600 horsepower and weighs less than the new cars. It's simply a better car. I know every little scratch and blemish in its paint. I was there, so it's all like memories that we share. It's the perfect car for me. Betty asked, "Why did you bring this up?" "I know everything about your car. I know how much you love it. It's almost 10 years old, but it may not be ideal for someone else. It's ideal for you. No one else has ever driven it. I can't even drive it because I can't drive. It's a manual, but if it's perfect for you, that's all that matters." Travis smiled at Betty as she sat in front of the mirror deciding whether to dye her hair. "I bring this up because we're not really talking about my car." "Betty," Travis said, "we're talking about you. I love you like I love that car. You're perfect just the way you are. It doesn't matter that you're getting older. You may not be the perfect you were 20 when we met, but I love you and you're the only one I want. I know every scratch and blemish and gray hair in your paint. I'm glad and proud that you're mine." Betty started crying and went to him when he said this. She undressed and went back to bed with him. This time, their connection was more romantic and less rushed. Both were late for work. Travis still considered himself lucky. Betty gave Gary a good foundation. It's easier for a man to go out and get food when he has someone to bring it home. Gary was a great young man. Travis wanted to help him get a good start in life. Gary needed the right woman in his life to help him focus and be happy. "Gary, you can do it." Travis said, "Trav, you should come with me." Gary said, "At least just show up. You can hide in the crowd and text me if I'm nervous. I can also call or text you if I get nervous or need help." Travis nodded in agreement. Half an hour later, Travis was following Gary's kid down the road in his Mustang. Travis knew he would need to talk to Gary again. Gary needed to get rid of this car as soon as possible. A man's car should say something. About Gary and the gray Kia, the restaurant was nice but not too expensive. This said several things about the woman. First, she wasn't after Gary's money. Second, she had good taste. If only the place weren't so far from the city. Travis waited a few minutes after Gary came in so no one would they were together. Gary got a seat near the bar and ordered a beer. Travis couldn't see the woman because Gary was blocking his view. They were chatting. Gary took out his phone. Travis saw a message from Gary. It said, "She's older than I expected and not as pretty, but she seems nice." "I stay," Travis sent his message back to Gary. Have conversations and become more confident with new people. Leave your phone on and record the conversation. Tomorrow we can discuss what you said so you don't make the same mistakes when you find the one you really want. Plus maybe you'll get lucky. Moments later Gary sent another message to Travis. "Okay, I'll do it. Got to go. I told her I was texting a friend at work. She wants to go somewhere more private." Travis slumped in his seat, noticing that Gary had stood up. He finally saw the woman's face. His heart stopped. The woman at Gary's table was his wife. Why was she dating Gary? Was this some kind of prank? By the time Travis gathered his thoughts, Betty and Gary were already leaving. Travis gathered his thoughts. Betty and Gary had already left the restaurant. He stood up to run after them, but the waiter stopped him. Travis paid for the beer and ran outside, but Gary and Betty had already left. He walked slowly to his car and tried to open the door. He pulled the door handle several times before remembering he had to unlock it. He took the keys out of his pocket, unlocked the car, and got inside. He started the car and didn't enjoy the engine noise. Travis usually didn't turn on the radio and left the window down. He liked to listen to the car's sounds. Today was different. Travis didn't even notice the engine noise. He sat in the parking lot for a long time before he realized it. There was only one thought. Travis had to think. He had to decide what to do with his life. He had done some good things, but they hadn't gone well. He had tried to help Gary, but it had made things worse. He wanted to help Gary find a good woman to love. Instead, he discovered that the woman he had loved for half his life was not who he thought she was. Now it seemed that half of Travis's life had been wasted. He needed answers. He had questions. How long had Betty been doing this? Why did she do this? Didn't she love him? He had no idea how to deal with it or what to do. He turned on the radio for background music and heard the news. On this day in 1975, the greatest tragedy on the Great Lakes occurred. Travis changed the station. He didn't want to become depressed. He drove along the embankment and watched the autumn winds create ripples and waves on the black water. A huge cargo ship passed him silently. He barely noticed it until the large ship sounded its horn. Betty Sutton pulled into her driveway, thinking about what a good time she had with the young man she had met. He wasn't her husband, but he was ready and capable if she had time to train him. He seemed to care that she had fun. This was one of the reasons why she only chose men who were looking for a relationship. Suddenly, an alarm went off in Betty's head. Her driveway was not empty. Travis's Mustang was parked in front of the house. He wasn't supposed to be there. Felt sweaty as she entered the house. Travis was outside on the terrace drinking drinks and looking at the moon. She came out and sat next to him. "Hello, darling," she said. "I wasn't expecting you so soon. I can make something if you want." "I'm not hungry," he said. He didn't ask where she was, so she didn't talk about it. However, there was something wrong with her husband. For the past 20 years, he would always kiss or touch her when they were close. He kissed her or stroked her hand whenever they saw each other, even if it was just for 5 minutes. He told her he only did this because he wanted to kiss her goodbye if something happened to her. He just sat there. Betty looked up at the sky. She thought it was unusual. She moved closer to Travis, expecting him to hug her. Travis just sat there looking up. She moved even closer and smiled at him. She touched his left thigh with her right. He didn't move away from her. He didn't hug her or grab her. Betty knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what to do. She asked Travis if something was wrong, but he didn't say anything. He just looked up at the sky. Betty was on the verge of panic. Did he know? She was careful, but he could find out. She sat next to him for another 5 minutes and then came up with an idea. "I'm cold. Maybe you should grab a jacket or go inside." "No," he said. "Tired," he said. "Me too," she replied, smiling and taking his hand. "I'll come in a while," he said. Betty was confused and worried. Her intimate life with Travis had not been as good as she wanted. But he had never rejected her until that moment. Something was definitely wrong. On the other hand, she knew Travis better than anyone. If he knew what she did, he would be furious. He would scream and demand to know who the guy was. She was pretty sure he didn't know what she had done. She stood up and headed towards their house. "I'll wait for you, darling." She took a long shower, washing her hair and body with soap. She blow-dried her hair and laid in bed without clothes, waiting for Travis. She thought about their life together and how he had felt this sad before. He was thinking about quitting his job. It was a big decision because he might have to move to another company. If it didn't work, it could affect him, her, and their children. Travis was always careful. He always put her and their children first. She needed to convince him that they would get through anything together. She also needed to make sure everything was okay between them. She fell asleep worried. When she woke up, she was still alone. She looked out the window and saw that Travis had disappeared. She called him on her mobile phone and waited. Music began to sound below. It was Van Halen's Ain't Talkin' About Love. It was one of Travis's favorite songs and also his ringtone. She saw his phone on the stereo in the living room. Travis must have been really out of his mind. He never left that damn iPhone anywhere. If they went on vacation, he took the phone with him. She dialed his office. Travis's assistant Melissa answered the phone. Betty never loved Melissa. They were complete opposites. Melissa was only 24 when she started working for Travis right after college. She was getting more beautiful every day. Betty had short dark hair while Melissa had long brown hair with blonde streaks. Betty was curvy while Melissa was slim and fit. The thing Betty hated most about Melissa was that she was as devoted to Travis as Betty was. Melissa even turned down an opportunity to get a promotion. Betty was upset when she found out that Melissa got a promotion and stayed with Travis. She had no reason to worry, though. Betty became friends with several people at Travis's company. She would know if something was going on. She heard that Melissa was flirting with Travis all the time, but Travis didn't seem to notice or do anything about it. Betty thought about asking Travis to find another assistant, but decided it was better not to. All Travis ever did was flirt with Melissa. He never showed any intention of cheating on her. If Melissa left, her replacement could also go after Travis. Finally, if Melissa was interested in Travis, she would have made sure that no other woman got close to him. Melissa became Betty's watchdog. Betty also maintained a polite relationship with Melissa. Tell Travis to call me, Betty. He's early for a big meeting and will be busy all day. The meeting will keep them here late into the evening and even tomorrow. You'll have a better chance of talking to him tonight than I do, but I'll tell him you called. Something big is going on at Travis's job. It worries him. He could find another job. This news calmed Betty down a bit, but she was still annoyed with Melissa. The girl hung up without saying goodbye. She bid again. The girl called Betty Miss Sutton, which made it seem like they were just casual acquaintances. This was despite the fact that Melissa had been to their house several times for parties or celebrations that had nothing to do with work. Betty often told Melissa to call her Betty. The girl's refusal to do so was offensive because it made it seem like Melissa simply Betty didn't want to be friendly. She called Travis by his first name. The way she said Travis was familiar. Betty might have to reconsider her decision to keep Melissa as an assistant for her husband. Melissa looked angry when she hung up. She might be found guilty of Betty's murder. As she went to the door between Travis's office and hers, someone came into her office. It was Barney Clark, the account manager. He often came in to talk to Travis about one thing or another. Barney looked at Melissa in her short skirt and swallowed loudly. She looked at him and his eyes grew even larger. Melissa's eyes grew larger as her hair fell over her shoulders. "Is there anything I can help you with, Mr. Clark?" she asked. "I just came by to ask Travis a few questions about the new product line," he said. "Travis only handles corporate accounts," Melissa replied. "He probably has no idea about the company's specific products." "That's not my job." "I'll tell him you came by," she said, smiling. "He was in a meeting with Gary." "Okay, thanks, Clark." He watched as Melissa turned to check on Travis. He got what he wanted. She turned around, and he enjoyed the sight of her. Normally, Melissa would have waited until he left. She needed to find out what was going on with Travis before she got to the door. It opened, and Travis and Gary walked out. She noticed that as soon as the door began to open, Barney Clark ran out of the office. "Thanks for your help, Travis." Gary smiled. "It's great to have a mentor like you." Melissa noticed that Gary was a small, homely man Melissa found boring. He wasn't creepy or weird, but he was grinning like a schoolboy today. He even walked up to her and looked her in the eye. Gary said, "Something turned this shy mouse into a tiger." Gary looked at her and smiled as he walked past Travis. Melissa was surprised when Gary blocked her path. Gary asked, "Are you busy tonight?" Gary looked at her cleavage. Melissa replied, "My eyes are up here. I'm busy every evening." She then walked around him and followed Travis into his office. Melissa knocked on Travis's door when he didn't answer. She used her emergency key and opened it herself. She entered the office and was unprepared for what she found. Travis had come very early in the morning. This was unusual. He told her that if Betty called, he would be busy all day. This meant that he and his wife had probably fought. If Travis and Betty were fighting, Melissa would be on her side. But seeing Travis, who was usually tough, made Melissa angrier. Betty's call, I'm going to kill her, Melissa thought. She walked around the table and began to massage Travis's back and shoulders. She enjoyed the closeness and intimacy, but the sensations caused a storm inside her. "Thanks, Mel," Travis said. He touched her hand, and a new wave of tingling ran through her body. What did she do this time? "I want to talk about Travis," Melissa said. "Whatever upset you is my business. We're a team. If you're not in the game, the whole team suffers. If I have to suffer, I want to know why. Besides, you told Gary, I've known you and worked for you much longer. If you're going to stay, you'll start hurting my feelings. Gary doesn't know anything." Travis snapped, "I trust you more than anyone." Melissa was relieved he said that. He didn't say more than anyone but Betty. He didn't put any conditions on his statement. He trusted her more than anyone. Her heart was doing somersaults. Then Travis said, "Go ahead and tell me. Maybe I can help." Her southern accent became more pronounced, and her voice trembled. Travis hesitated, then began to speak. "I think, or I know, that Betty is cheating on me." Melissa was shocked. She thought about going to Travis's house and beating up Betty. She would get satisfaction from hurting Betty for hurting Travis. It would be worth going to jail. Melissa realized that Travis needed to make his own decisions. Her job was to support him and help him pick up the pieces. She knew Travis should have divorced Betty, but there was nothing new there. Melissa asked, "Why did Gary sleep with Betty? You went with him to help, and he betrayed you. Plus, Betty is pretty old." "Gary, remember, Travis said he'd never been to your house or met Betty. He only knew her from pictures on the wall, taken over 10 years ago. He had no idea she was your wife. Maybe he was lying." Travis said, "I told him to record their conversation on his iPhone so we could talk about it. On his next date, he would do better." Gary was nervous and forgot to turn off his phone. He wrote everything down, but it wasn't his fault. Gary was a gentleman, and it was perfect. She suggested he go to a motel. She took the first steps. "Don't worry about it," Melissa said sharply. "We fire Gary and divorce her." Melissa suddenly stopped. She was angry and aggressive. She was sorry, Travis. She said she was angry that she did this to you. "We'll handle this your way, Ma." Travis said none of this is Gary's fault. He didn't know Betty was married to me. She was in the driver's seat. "What do you want to do, Melissa? Should I look for divorce lawyers or marriage counselors?" "I don't know, Travis." I'm in shock. I'm surprised and hurt. I have a lot of feelings. I never thought I'd be in this situation. I never thought Betty would do something like that. I really believed that she loved me. I thought we'd spend the rest of our lives together. Sometimes when I hear about divorces, I understand. But I always thought that the only way for Betty and me to separate was if one of us died. I've even always thought about what I would do. If Betty left before me, would I date someone else or just grow old taking care of our grandchildren? What would you do? The idea seems right for you. I wish I could feel something now. I feel empty. I'm hurt and upset with Betty, but it's not even anger. I wish I could lash out at her. I'm sure it will come in time, so maybe you could find me a marriage counselor. Melissa nodded. She understood what he meant. She had a plan. She needed to find the best divorce lawyer in the state. Then she'd find the worst marriage counselor. She wanted to find someone so bad that he would just give up and tell all his clients to get a divorce. Perhaps she could find someone so bad that he didn't even show up for scheduled meetings. Melissa took Travis to lunch that day. She took him to Pizza Hut. She still laughed about it because someone of Travis's age and income should really be going to a restaurant that wasn't the same one he loved when he was a teenager. But his boyish side was just one of the things she loved about him. She had the chance to learn more about him while they ate. Melissa listened to Travis talk about how he met Betty and all the things he loved about her. As the conversation went on, he started to mention some things he didn't like about his wife. Melissa wrote it all down for future use. She spent a lot of time touching him and comforting him. She just wanted him to feel loved. At lunch, Melissa gave Travis her contact info and that of a lawyer. Later, he drove home. He walked past Betty and into the house without saying anything. Betty turned off the TV and stood up as soon as she heard his car. She spent the day preparing his favorite dinner and wearing one of his favorite outfits. She wanted him to feel comfortable. Maybe then he would tell her what was going on. Travis had many years of experience, so it couldn't be that bad. Good jobs were hard to find, but Travis had skills and experience. They had saved money. They would get by. Betty turned and smiled as the door opened. Travis didn't look at her. He went upstairs. She stood there a second with a smile, then got angry. Travis had never treated her badly. If he treated her like that, they would never have. Betty wasn't going to put up with it now. She ran upstairs to their bedroom and fell face down in front of it, tearing her dress. She was even more angry. The dress was one of her favorites. She opened the door and entered their bedroom, but no one was there. She looked into the adjoining bathroom and there was no one there either. Finally, she tried to go into the guest room and there her husband lay, looking at the ceiling. Her dress and her husband's strange behavior made her shout at him. "What the hell is wrong with you, Travis?" He just looked at her like she was crazy. Sometimes it takes a lot for a person to move. Sometimes it can be the smallest thing. Betty's actions the night before had put a significant strain on their marriage. Travis wanted to confront her, but he also wanted to move on. He didn't feel right letting her get away with it, but he wasn't sure he wanted a divorce. Betty's scream was the last straw. Travis suddenly sat down on the edge of the bed and smiled. Betty saw the smile and misinterpreted it. "To you, dear?" Betty asked. Travis said she was shocked. She couldn't understand what was happening. Travis suddenly stood up and walked into their bedroom. He went straight to his closet and started packing. "Are you going on a business trip again?" Betty asked. "Is this one of those trips where?" "I can go with you on both questions," Travis said calmly. "Then why are you packing?" "I'm sure you can figure it out," Betty said. "I took everything I could pack," Travis said. "I moved quickly and very confidently." "Because of that little in your office, isn't it?" Betty said. You slept with her and now you want to move in with her. Travis looked at Betty as if she had grown a second head. This has nothing to do with Melissa, he said. I didn't sleep with her and never have. It might happen in the future. I knew it was because of her. I want you to fire her tomorrow. She's always picking on you. It's good that someone is looking out for me. Travis, you're an idiot. Yesterday was the first day I could do anything. I tried to make love to you when you came home, but you refused. If you're mad because you didn't get it, you better grow up. She approached him. I want you as much as you want me, but after 20 years. After 20 years together, you should know how my cycle works. Maybe you don't know because I'm not important to you. I'm just someone you can come home to and have a night with whenever and however you want. If I can't satisfy you, then I'm nothing to you. Is that what you want? Pack your things, Travis. I'm leaving. Betty was excited. She wanted Travis to leave. Betty ran after him, screaming. She made it to the bottom of the stairs just in time to hear the door slam shut. She opened the door and stepped out onto the porch of her house. Her bare breasts swung freely. Betty saw the mailman on her porch. He stared at her. Betty ran after Travis. She grabbed the car door, but missed. Betty went back inside. He wondered what happened to Travis. Betty looked at the floor. She saw a business card. She realized she had been too rough on Travis. He was probably stressed. The card was from a marriage and emotional therapy counselor. Her baby was sick, so he saw a therapist. She yelled at him. He just wanted to be alone. When he got home, she went upstairs and lay down. She needed to find him and convince him to come home. She called his cell phone, but it was still on the table. She couldn't contact him. He calmed down, so she stayed home and sat by the phone. They had been married for 20 years and couldn't imagine living without each other. She gave him a day or two to calm down. She called the counselor and asked what was wrong with Travis. The counselor told her that Travis couldn't give her any information about his treatment. The counselor said that if Travis gave his permission, she could be involved. 2 days later, Betty called Travis's office. She didn't want to talk to Travis unless he was ready. She wanted to talk to Melissa, the useless young woman who worked for Travis. Hello? Melissa? Betty began. She only heard a beep. They must have been turned off. This girl still couldn't work the phone system properly. Betty called again. There was another beep. Melissa had hung up twice. Travis will fire her. Betty grabbed her coat and purse and drove to Travis's office. She took the elevator to his floor and entered his office. Melissa barely raised her head when Betty entered. Why did you hang up? Betty asked sharply. Get your things. You're fired. Mrs. Sutton, you don't work here. Melissa said no, but Travis can. As soon as I leave his office, he will. Do you have a recording? Melissa asked. I don't need a tape to see my husband. You're stupid. Betty snapped. Melissa pressed a button on her intercom and smiled. Betty blurted out, "There's no point in trying to smile and be nice." She walked past Melissa and went to Travis's door. She turned the knob and found it locked. "Do you have a key?" she asked. Melissa smiled and nodded. "So why are you sitting there?" "An idiot." "Open the door." 2 large security guards entered the office. "Madam, there's no reason for such language," said the first guard. "Hi, Melvin," said Melissa. He nodded to her and smiled. "She wants to see Travis, but she doesn't have an appointment. Plus, he left me." Instructions not to take calls from her. He's not in the building. He's with his lawyer. Could you escort her out? We heard her insult you. Do you want to sue her? We could hold her until the police come. I like this idea. They probably won't do anything serious, but she'll be documented. The two men were escorted out. You're going to pay for this, Betty, she screamed. Several people in the office heard her and saw her being taken out. She turned to Melissa as the guards grabbed her arms and pulled. Several people came out of their offices to see what was happening. One of them was Gary. He saw Betty being led out of Travis's office and heard her screaming. When their eyes met, Betty fell silent. Gary looked at her intently. The guard took her away. He went straight to Melissa's. Who is this woman? He asked Melissa. Why was she here? Melissa looked at Gary with obvious irritation. Gary almost recoiled when he saw the indignation in her gaze. What did I do to you? He asked. Why are you looking at me like that? You didn't have to do anything to me. Melissa snapped. She closed the door, and Gary followed Melissa into Travis's office. He had a feeling Melissa was there for something illegal. He wasn't against it, but he'd prefer to do it somewhere else. We should wait. A lot of people saw us come in and close the door. He noticed she was just standing there, looking at him. Sorry, he said, but you're so beautiful. Gary shut up. Melissa said, how can one person be so stupid? Gary, I don't care if you look at my breasts. Melissa smiled. You're wasting your time. I'm not attracted to you. If you were the last man on earth, I would start loving women. You always looked at me like some kind of strange old pervert. You're not. You're a healthy man about my age. Why aren't you looking for someone who's interested in you? Gary sat down on the table. His confidence was gone. The woman you were dating didn't want to fall in love with you. She was just looking for intimacy. You're in the middle of a divorce case, Gary. She has a husband and 2 children. Is that what's made you so proud and confident lately? You're feeling good about yourself because you had a night off, without realizing you've destroyed a family. Gary dropped his head to his chest, he looked up, and his whole expression changed. Did you know? It's not your fault. You probably didn't know her husband found out. You probably weren't the first. If that's any consolation, Gary, but you were. The worst? Why am I the worst? Gary began again before he could finish his thought. Melissa crossed the office and was in his face for a moment. Gary felt afraid. Why was she so angry with him? He was the one who got caught. Melissa replied angrily. It doesn't matter if she slept with 50 guys. None of them hurt her husband because he didn't know about them. You, Gary, are the one who ruined everything. Melissa, I'm sorry. Gary said, his voice sounded like he was on the verge of tears. Gary looked at him with anger. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm just like everyone else. I'm lonely and tired of being alone. I was just looking for someone. Gary's voice cracked, and tears appeared in the corners of his eyes. We were together for 20 years. Melissa, damn you. I wanted it to end, but it didn't. I didn't. She wanted him to suffer. She wanted them back together again. She was waiting for him. He was worth it. Melissa was now crying. What does this have to do with you? Gary asked. Is this woman related to you? No, Melissa said. Do you even know her name? Gary said, her name is Ginger. Melissa said, Ginger Grant is the redhead from Gilligan's Island. That woman is Betty Sutton. Gary sank onto the table. He began to sob. I didn't know. Melissa's desk phone rang. She ran to it and talked for a few moments. Gary couldn't understand her. She returned to the office and looked at Gary. Get out of here, she said. It was Travis. He's on his way. I told him to stop by the house and get his phone, which he left there. It shouldn't take him more than 15 minutes to get to work. I have to tell him how sorry I am. Gary said he was sorry for all the times he looked at me. I'll never do that again. Gary, you don't look at me because I'm pretty. If that were the case, you'd be looking at my face. It's not your fault. You're not the only one here who does this. There are 3 types of perverts, those who look at my chest, and those who look at my legs. Maybe I was just taking it out on you for all of them. I guess that's just how most men are. You're really beautiful. What color are my eyes? Melissa asked, closing her eyes. Blue. He's still in shock. He doesn't know what he's going to do. The creature doesn't even know that he knows. Did you give her your phone number? Gary nodded. She'll call you when the police are done. You want to help Travis. Don't let her know that Travis knows. Don't let her know that you know Travis. It's a big company with a lot of employees. There's a good chance you could both work here without knowing each other. Office Betty was furious. She was angrier than she had ever been. As soon as she pulled into her street, she noticed Travis's Mustang pulling out of their driveway and heading in the opposite direction. She tried to call him from the police station, but he didn't have a phone. They didn't charge her, but they recorded a complaint and warned her to stay away from AL. Now that Betty had calmed down, she realized she'd handled the situation poorly. The best way to deal with this would be to wait a few days until Travis came out of his funk. Then she'd do what she should have done that from the start. She would put Travis to bed and ask him to find another assistant. It was time for Melissa to learn her place. Betty and Travis had been together for 20 years and had children. Travis was depressed, but he would get through it. Marriage has ups and downs. This was normal. The most important thing was that she loved Travis and he loved her. Case closed. Betty entered the house. She was angry. She forgot to put the food away. She spent a lot of time and money on dinner. She took a shower and went to bed. Travis walked into his office and felt a little better. It was like a shot. At first, it hurt like hell. The pain blocked all other sensations. After a few hours, it just became a deep, sharp pain. Betty's betrayal still hurt, but it was a deep, sharp pain. He still felt it strongly, but it no longer blocked out everything else. He saw Melissa sitting at her desk. She hung up and wrote something down. Travis waved at her. She was angry with him. He walked into his office and was about to sit down when he heard the door slam. The door slammed behind him. He jumped back. It was Melissa. She was breathing heavily. Travis tried not to notice. Her chest rose and fell, and the view was magnificent. The guards told me what happened. Travis said you shouldn't have to put up with this from Betty or anyone else. You have every right to be angry. Who cares about your wife? Melissa replied. I'm mad at you. Have I done something, Travis? She asked. Why are you staying at a cheap motel? I was going to tell you because I knew you'd be worried, Travis replied. I thought a lot and left Betty last night. I Googled the motel. It's not the best place for you. There are probably girls there who. There are easy girls there, and you are too vulnerable. I need to find you a safe place, Melissa said. Have you seen a therapist? No, I went to a lawyer, Travis said quietly. You can tell me at lunch. You pay, she said, closing the door. It didn't close right. She needed to call maintenance. She walked past her desk and into the supply closet. She took a deep breath and finally allowed herself to show her true feelings. Yes, she said quietly. Melissa looked at Travis across the table. They went to Red Lobster for lunch. This was Melissa's favorite place. She knew Travis preferred Texas Roadhouse, but shrimp season was on. Melissa ordered the unlimited shrimp buffet. Travis ordered the steak. Melissa laughed. You won't like this steak. Why order a steak from a seafood place? We'll go to Texas Roadhouse for dinner. Tell me about the visit to the lawyer. I came expecting to tell him how she cheated on me and to hear how I could keep most of our. He made me understand that it doesn't matter who did what. Justice and law are two different things. Betty could have hung a sign on our front porch that said we'll have a night for food. If she had slept with sailors for free, she would still be entitled to half of our assets. Even after I gave her half of everything, I would have to pay her alimony. Melissa said this is not about fairness, Travis. Melissa brought documents to sign. We'll be leaving soon. We need to stop by your motel and pick up your things. Travis remembered her anger. I found a better place for you, Melissa, Travis said. We'll move your things and get you settled. Then you can treat me to dinner. Travis nodded in agreement. He noticed Melissa's anger fade and her smile light up the room as he agreed with her. Travis wanted to do something, anything, to make it better. He returned to his hotel room. His iPhone rang twice. Both times, he sent the calls to voicemail and deleted the messages without listening. In both cases, she started by saying she didn't understand what was wrong. He knew about her actions. Melissa followed Travis back to his motel. She looked around and shook her head. She looked through all his things, even his underwear drawer. He had packed all his belongings back into their suitcases and loaded them into the trunk of his car and into the back seat. They drove off. Melissa kept writing things down. He wondered what she was taking notes about. This time he followed her to the new motel she had found for him. They stopped in front of a large, well-lit, beautifully decorated building. Melissa got out of her car and picked up one of Travis's suitcases. Travis thought she must have known the building manager. It looked like she had found him an apartment. They took the elevator to the 5th floor. Melissa took out her keys and opened the door. Travis looked around and found himself inside a nicely furnished apartment. Who lives here? He asked. We are, Melissa said. Travis opened the door. His mouth opened to tell Melissa he could stay, and he saw her eyes light up. We'll talk about it over dinner, Melissa said. Stay in my guest bedroom. It's the one on the right. Travis put his suitcases in the room. Maybe he should just go home until he found another place. 10 minutes later, they were in Travis's Mustang, speeding down the highway. They agreed not to talk about work, Betty, or anything serious until dinner. Until then, they were just two friends going out for a nice dinner. Their problems would still be there. After they ate, Melissa looked at Travis and smiled. I'm mad at you, she said. Why? It was the best steak I've ever eaten, she replied. Why do you always take me to Red Lobster? I thought Red Lobster was your favorite, Travis said. Okay, we'll go somewhere else next time. Let's talk, Melissa said. I appreciate the offer, but I can't stay with you. You should know that I thought about things this afternoon. I don't want a divorce. Melissa looked offended. Are you going to stay with her after everything she did to you? I don't see the point in giving her half of what I worked for. I gave her everything she asked for. I was there for her, and this is what I got in return. Think about all the chances I had to cheat on her, but I never did. So if the law is, if you're not on my side, I'll just leave her. She can stay with the house, but good luck paying for it. I'll probably say I'll never get married again, so I don't need a divorce. Travis, what does this have to do with staying with me? Aged guy getting in the way of your lifestyle. What will people think of you living with a man? He asked Travis. You're a fool. You think I'm doing this out of nobility? Melissa asked. Travis stared back at her. Neither of them wanted to back down. Then Travis blinked. Melissa said that over the next few weeks, Betty called Travis every day. He never spoke to her. He talked to the kids when they called. He even talked to his parents and his in-laws. Betty called Travis's parents and in-laws. She was sure that Travis had found another woman. She hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. She didn't really want a divorce. She told her lawyer that her plan was to force Travis to return to her by threatening divorce. He had to come to the meeting to talk. It was scheduled for November 29th, 5 days after Thanksgiving. Betty also tried to call Gary, but he hung up. She was surprised. She had hinted that she might be interested in repeating their encounter, but he hung up. It didn't matter to Betty. He wasn't experienced in bed. She had always assumed it would be a one-time thing. She just didn't have time to find someone else. Finally, she got her lucky break. Her mother called her and reminded her about Thanksgiving. They usually alternated who spent the holiday at whose house. This year it was Betty's. Becky, Travis, and Betty's daughter would not attend. She spent the holiday with her boyfriend's family. It would be an ideal chance for her to talk to Travis and resolve their issues. She missed him so much. The good news was that Betty's mom told her Travis was coming. She told Travis Betty wouldn't be there, but that was a white lie. Betty's mom said if she could get them back together, all would be forgiven. Betty had her chance. Betty usually treated Thanksgiving like just another holiday, but this one was going to be special. She was going to do whatever it took to get her husband back. Then she could be grateful for something. Since Travis left, it affected she in ways I never expected. I had affairs to spice up our intimate life. I did this to add excitement and variety to she life. There was nothing wrong with our intimate life. I just wanted more variety. Since Travis left, I haven't gone out on a date. I simply have no interest in my pleasures. She tried to win back her husband, who she'd loved for over 20 years. She couldn't go to his office because the guards wouldn't let her in. She thought about making an appointment with someone in the building, but why would she bother with a corporate sales company? She thought about asking Gary to make an appointment for her. She could have waited for Melissa to leave or for Travis to come in. But every time she called Gary, he hung up. It was weird because before they slept together, Gary was always talking to her. Once they did, he didn't want anything to do with her. She dated a few of these guys. In college, she was sure men had evolved. The problem was that she expected every man to treat her like Travis. She wondered why he left. She still didn't know why. Travis was suffering from work stress. He came home angry about something stupid. She didn't know why he left. She only knew about him from her children and her mother. Her daughter seemed upset that he was with another woman. Betty was sick about the thought that he might cheat on her. Travis seemed to blame her for his stress. If Travis had a woman with him, Betty would have forgiven him. He should have ended the relationship. There was no room for cheating. Betty was thinking about her flings. She only saw each guy once. She only loved Travis. Travis was wrong. He only seemed to be dating one. Becky told her mother that she called her father late that night. The woman picked up, and Becky thought she sounded familiar. The woman said her father was in the shower and would call back. Whatever was going on with Travis would be resolved at Thanksgiving dinner. Betty was looking forward to it. He might even come home with her that night. Betty hadn't had sex with anyone since Gary left. She missed it. Thanksgiving couldn't come soon enough. "Mel, maybe you should get dressed." Travis said, "Well, that's news." "I don't remember a man saying that to me besides you, Travis. It's just the two of us here. I've been wearing clothes all day at work. Now that we're home, I want to relax. If you weren't here, I probably wouldn't wear anything at all." Travis looked at Melissa. She was beautiful, but her breasts were large. They were probably smaller than Betty's, who had average-sized breasts. You could see her breasts from behind because her torso was narrow. Her waist was thin, and her hips and buttocks were large. From her spine, she had long, slender legs and always wore heels. Travis looked away from Melissa before his eyes got him into trouble. In the 3 weeks since he moved in with Melissa, things had moved very quickly. He started looking for his own apartment several times but always stopped. The first time he picked up one of those apartment finding brochures, he left it on the kitchen table so he wouldn't forget to look at it when he returned. The brochure had disappeared. He bought another one, and it also disappeared. He found several sites and he saved them to his favorites and even bookmarked a few. When he returned to look at them again, they had been removed from his favorites. He began to suspect Melissa had something to do with it. Before he could confront her, he was contacted by Betty's lawyer. The lawyer tried to convince him to accept counseling or face divorce from Betty. His lawyer spoke with Betty and her lawyer and was convinced that it was a ploy to meet with Betty. Travis's lawyer explained to him that if he let Betty file for divorce, he could gain some benefits. Their first meeting was scheduled for a few days after Thanksgiving. Travis and Melissa were together almost 24/7. They ate, worked, and relaxed together. They didn't sleep together. They went out to restaurants or to shows several times a week. Most evenings, they just sat and talked on their balcony or watched TV together. "We need to talk," Travis said. "What you're wearing makes it hard for me to say what I need to say." Melissa got up and put on her robe. "Okay, Travis." "Is that better?" she asked, giving him a salute. Even the robe couldn't hide Melissa's body, but it was a start. She sat down on the couch across from him, and her robe fell open, revealing tan legs. Travis's pants felt tighter in the crotch. "Melissa, you've done so much for, I'll never be able to thank you enough," Travis began. "But I'm starting to feel like I'm taking advantage of you. You're 24. You should be dating and experiencing life. Don't sit in your apartment with me dealing with my issues with." Melissa's eyes flashed with anger. But then she smiled at him and her legs opened a little wider. "You're taking advantage of me. If you weren't here, I'd still have to pay for it. You spent the last 3 weeks on dinners for me. Your presence makes me feel protected and not so lonely. You are not stopping my life. It's just begun. When you were the same age, you already had a child." I nodded, so I started taking life more seriously. "Travis, I'm dating someone. It's someone you see often, but you don't know we're meeting. My life is amazing. I don't see myself stuck here with you. I enjoy our time together." Travis, girls with daddy issues either never knew their fathers or didn't have a good relationship with them. They wanted my dad. He was a wonderful man. He loved me, and I loved him. He died of cancer in his sophomore year of college. My relationship with you has nothing to do with him or any fixation on your father. Is there anything else you want to complain about? Travis swallowed and then nodded. Well, spit it out. We are wasting time that we could spend watching TV. What will you do for Thanksgiving? Travis asked. I usually either go spend it with Melissa said. I was hoping we could just spend Thanksgiving cooking and relaxing together. Travis said, I mean, unless either of us is married to someone else, it's not like we're married to each other. Melissa simply smiled and decided to let him go in peace. What do you mean? Travis explained the dinner situation to Betty's parents. Melissa was sure that even though Travis had been told Betty wouldn't be there, she would be okay. I'll go, she smiled. Remember 2 things. I'm only doing this for you. You owe me. Travis nodded and smiled. Are we done with the serious talk? Melissa asked Travis. He nodded. He'd never won an argument with Betty. He could see he'd never win with Melissa. He considered it a victory that she let him gain a few points. Did he win anything? She said, then I can relax. Melissa took off her robe and put her long legs on Travis's lap. She took the remote and turned on the TV. We'll watch your show, Top Gear. She asked about his favorite TV show. She was happy with how things turned out. He would stop trying to move out of her apartment until they were ready to move to a bigger place together. He also used the word we, which was a big win. She asked if he wanted a beer. He nodded, so she got him a cold Dos Equis sampler and a Pepsi. Then she sat next to him on the couch. She rested her hips on him and wrapped one of his arms around her shoulders as they watched the show. Melissa whispered in Travis' ear and asked him about Thanksgiving dinner next year. What if they were married? Other Betty looked at her outfit one last time before going to her mother. She chose a dress with a hint of whimsy but also with serious intentions. It was red with a white belt that emphasized her waist and gave her figure a needed accent. She wanted to show Travis something new. She put on a Santa hat. She angled her head and hung some mistletoe above his head. She hoped to kiss him and bring her husband home. Then they could stop the divorce and talk about what's wrong with Travis. She also wanted to know if she did something to make him leave. Her sister said it might be a midlife crisis. Some men dye their hair. Some bought a sports car, others climbed a mountain or ran a marathon. She hoped that was all it was. Either way, she should have spent more time trying to make Travis happy and make their marriage work. Perhaps she should have spent less time planning her dates and more time with Travis. She hadn't been with anyone since Gary. She was eager and probably would have a night with Travis in her parents' bed. If they left her alone, it had to be Travis. She missed him. She was sure he didn't want a divorce. He didn't withdraw money or file for divorce. His leaving hurt her, but they would still be together forever. It might even strengthen their relationship. She could forgive him if he fired Melissa or made her apologize to Betty. Melissa would rather quit than apologize, so it would be the same thing. She was too interested in Travis for Betty's liking. This went on for too long. Betty got into her car and drove to her mother's house. Betty still couldn't figure out why her sister married Kevin. He was plump and awkward. He also hadn't worked for more than 4 years. He spent all his time playing video games or reading comics. He turned down a job at a comic book store. He said he didn't want to accept money for his passion for art. He stood in the same store for hours every Wednesday when new comics came out. He argued about the same books and discussed the same characters with other nerds. Why didn't he get paid for it? If he worked in a store, he would bring home money. Hey Betty, you look good. Kevin said. Don't talk about Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. We can talk about football. Kevin almost slammed the door in Betty's face. He said, no wonder Travis left. Debbie came into the room and hugged Betty. I thought you weren't coming, Debbie said. Mom told everyone you weren't coming to force Travis to come. Betty smiled. At least you could have told me. Debbie complained. Why would you tell everyone? Betty asked. Sooner or later you would have told someone who knew Travis. They would have told him, and Travis would have come. But I look like Debbie said Travis is cute. If I knew he was coming, I could have dressed up. Debbie, Travis is my husband. I dressed up because we're having problems. I need him back. It's like when Conan Barbarian was there and left you. He came back to live in his mom's basement a few years ago. Betty said. Debbie simply smiled. Yes, but my darling is back with me now. Betty asked you to put pressure on him because you were working 2 jobs at the hospital to pay the mortgage. He was sitting at home eating bonbons and reading comics. He didn't clean the house. You paid for his comic books. You wanted him to get a job. Remember, you Betty, I needed extra income because I was thinking about the baby. Debbie said, I need to hear this. I don't have to worry about anyone breaking into our house. I don't need a baby because I already have Kevin. He's a big kid at heart. Tell her, honey. Kevin said, you two are perfect for each other. Betty went into her mother's kitchen. Her mother turned and smiled as Betty entered the room. I'm glad you're here. I need you for. Sorry, Mom. I can't afford to get this dress dirty. I need to look good when Travis comes. Her mom just looked at Betty and bit her lip. Betty returned to the living room just in time to see her son arrive. She was shocked. He had changed a lot in the last 10 weeks. He had gained several kilograms. He was starting to look like Kevin, except he had tattoos. His clean-shaven son now had a shaved head, a full beard, and tattoos on every inch of exposed skin on his arms. His hands were disproportionately small. It looked like a beach ball with tubes for arms. He even had a tattoo on his neck. Betty needed a stronger drink when Travis came. He'd go nuts thinking about all the money they spent on their son's college. He looks like he should be in the circus. She thought, good luck finding a job looking like that. The girl he brought with him looked sickly thin. She was dressed in 5th place. She was wearing all black. Her dress was so long it dragged on the ground. She had one tattoo, an inverted pentagram in the center of her forehead. She looked as if she had never seen the sun. She was wearing a black lace veil. She removed it as she entered. Betty decided that no matter how strange she looked, he was lucky to have a girl. She could become the future mother of his grandchildren. Betty walked over and introduced herself. The girl smiled at her. Then things went from bad to worse. The girl had fangs. Honey, asked Betty, what's going on with your teeth? Betty thought they were Halloween type. Vampire fangs? My dentist did it for me, the girl said. Betty wasn't sure if the girl was human. I'll keep them until I grow real fangs, the girl continued. Betty didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She would be happy when Travis arrived. Hey Dad, Betty said to her father, who was watching the football game. The father raised his glass, and Betty wondered what he was drinking. She needed some of it. Where's Travis? She asked her father. We're taking a break, he said. What did you do with him? Debbie screamed. She walked away from the couple. Betty went back to the kitchen. She was glad to be away from her father. She couldn't believe that her father thought it was her fault that Travis left her. Steve said. Betty splashed wine on her son's face in Anastasia's dress. She had trouble breathing and began to choke. The wine went down the wrong pipe. When she regained her breath, she repeated her sister's question. What did you do? She screamed. It's not. Steve said it was no big deal. I had a vasectomy, and Anna had her tubes tied. It didn't matter anyway because she couldn't have children. I could have sex with her every day. Vampires can't have children. Betty heard her father's laughter from across the room. She stood there, wondering what had happened to her son. Is this reversible? She asked Steve, who just shrugged. Betty walked across the room and sat down next to her father. "What are you drinking, Dad?" she asked, pointing to his glass. "Grandchildren depend on your daughter." They listened as Kevin argued with Anastasia about who had more supernatural powers. Anastasia said she had more time to develop her abilities since she turned 500 years old. Betty and her father, they looked at each other, and he took a long sip of alcohol. "You'd think that in 500 years she'd grow breasts," his father said. The doorbell rang. "It's great Thanksgiving," Kevin said, standing up to answer the door. Betty snapped. She settled herself on the armrest of her father's chair. He brought his goddess. Travis walked into the room, followed by Melissa, who held his hand tightly. Everything seemed to slow down. Betty saw that Travis had brought Melissa with him. She fell off the arm of her chair in surprise. Her father, who hardly ever left his chair, caught Melissa's eye, stood up, and walked to the door. Steve saw and started trying to hide the tattoos on his arms. Debbie came down the stairs to see Travis and froze in her tracks when she saw Melissa. Anastasia hissed at Melissa. Finally, Betty's mother came out of the kitchen to see why the house had suddenly become quiet. It was quiet. "Hi, Travis," Betty's mom said. "It's time for you to come in." "Who is this, Mom?" "This is Melissa," Travis said. Melissa stepped forward and gave Betty's mom the wine she and Travis had taken. She took the box from Travis. "It's a holiday angel cake," Melissa said. "Did you make this with your food?" Kevin asked. "Can I help you in the kitchen?" Melissa asked Betty's. "Of course you can," Mom said, smiling. "Why did you bring her, Debbie?" "I could bring someone," Travis said. "Come on over here," Betty's father said. "Let's watch football." 20 minutes later, the living room was silent. Father-in-law, they were watching Michigan State lose to Iowa. Stephen, Kevin, Betty, Debbie, and Anastasia were all looking into the kitchen at Melissa. Stephen said she was beautiful. Kevin said she was unreal. Debbie said she hated her to the core. Betty said she would sleep with her. Anastasia said it was a miracle that Melissa made it out of the kitchen alive. She avoided slipping on puddles of spit in her high heels. She sat on the arm of Travis's chair like Betty had done an hour ago. She leaned over Travis and rested her head on his shoulder. Debbie stopped her from going further. "I know you're angry," Debbie said. "Don't ruin Thanksgiving. Wait until after dinner. I'll distract her by asking about her clothes or something, and you can talk to Travis." After a while, they all gathered at the dinner table. The table was set with delicious dishes. The turkey was golden and glittered. There was a ham on the side, a pot of mashed potatoes, and a gravy boat in front of Kevin, Betty's father. He stood up to say a prayer of thanksgiving, but was interrupted. "Anastasia, you can't eat this food. Remember, you have to be a vampire," Kevin said. "Honey, shut up." Debbie sat across the table. Anastasia looked irritated. Then it began. Betty noticed Melissa and Travis holding hands. She grabbed the gravy boat and threw it at Melissa, who dodged it. She grabbed a biscuit and threw it at Melissa. The biscuit hit Betty between the eyes, and the butter smeared her makeup. Betty threw mashed potatoes at Melissa, who dodged behind Travis. Betty realized she had thrown mashed potatoes on her husband and screamed again. Anastasia threw green beans at Kevin. The beans in the pot they were cooked in were still very hot when they hit Kevin in the face. The big man was furious and started to kick Anastasia. He stood up and tried to pull his uncle away from his girlfriend. The two men ended up wrestling on the floor. They rolled over the supposed vampire, who was underneath them. Betty and Melissa also stood up and began to walk around the table towards each other. Debbie tried to hold back her sister, who started all this. Betty was so furious with Melissa that she hit her own sister in an attempt to free herself. Melissa had decided by then. Betty was tired of being the object of Melissa's attention. She grabbed the bowl of cranberry sauce and threw it at Betty. The bowl didn't reach its target and fell to the floor, but the sauce covered Betty, ruining her outfit, hair, and face. Betty also slipped on the mess and fell on her butt. There was chaos throughout the room. Only Travis and Betty's parents didn't participate. Betty's father walked over to the china cabinet. Betty's father opened the cabinet and took something out. He shot a gun at the ceiling to get everyone's attention. "Stop it," he shouted. "You started this," he said, pointing at Melissa. "I was only reacting to what she did," Betty replied. "You held my husband's hand right in front of me," Debbie said. "Melissa said you filed for divorce from him, so he's free." Everyone gasped. "Is this true?" Stephen asked. Betty nodded. "I don't want a divorce. I only did it because your father left. I needed to get his attention. The divorce should never have happened. There was always going to be a divorce. Travis said you filed for it before I was ready. But why did you cheat on me?" Betty asked. "I love you," Travis said. "You love me enough to cheat on me for months. I know it wasn't Gary's first time. You broke my heart. You should have known that if I found out about your cheating, there would be no hope for us." Everyone fell silent. "Only in him," she said quietly. "It didn't mean anything. There was no love. I just wanted a little variety." Debbie exclaimed, "Betty, you are a worthless fool. I love Kevin's quirks. I would die to have what you just ruined." "Hey Kevin," said Debbie. "Shut up. You bragged about how good he was in bed. You lied. I said he'd just been so tired from work. We've cut it down to 3 or 4 times a week. I need more. The guys I've dated weren't that good. Does he? I just thought I'd get extra money. I'll take it 4 times a week." Melissa said, "How often do you guys do this now?" Debbie asked. "We're not like that." Melissa said more. Betty said, "I thought so, Betty. You're right. I've loved Travis for years, but we didn't do anything." Melissa began, still said Travis, who hadn't said much until now. "Travis loved you with all his heart." Melissa said, "I knew it would take him a long time to forget you, but you hurt him so much that he now has trust issues. I think deep down he just wanted to get back to you and maintain the relationship." Betty asked her father, "How many times have you cheated on him?" Everyone at the table looked at her. "I don't remember," Betty said. "Try really hard." Her mother said, "Give us the number." Betty said, "You went to college. It shouldn't be that hard." "Was it more than 5?" Betty asked. "More than 10, she said." The father began, "Please stop asking." Travis stood up and cried. Betty wanted to approach him, but he raised his hand, warning her to stay away. "Mom and Dad," Travis began, "I'm sorry. I've always called you that because you've become a second parent to me. Thank you for inviting me into your home again." Tell Travis he was barely holding it together. "I haven't had a chance to discuss your new look with you yet, but we need to talk." Steve looked at his father and nodded. Kevin chose that moment to laugh. "You guys picked the worst women." Kevin said Travis married a fake dead girl with no chest. Betty's father took this opportunity to point the gun at Kevin. "I'm a loser here too. If I get divorced, my daughter will probably leave me. If you keep talking, I'll just leave you too." Kevin started eating. Anastasia looked at him and laughed. Travis turned to Melissa and said, "Let's go home." Betty called Travis a lot that week. Travis never answered her calls and finally blocked her. They met at her lawyer's office to discuss property. Betty tried to delay the process and insisted on counseling. She wanted a 90% to 100% split of their assets, 98% of Travis's income, and child support. She knew no court would satisfy her, but her demands delayed the divorce. Travis and Melissa was happy that Travis saw his goal and was freeing himself from Betty. He continued to work towards this and knew that he would eventually achieve it. Betty could only delay the divorce. Melissa was delighted. She had always wanted Travis, and now she had him. Her only concern was making him happy. One morning just after New Year's, the police arrived at their office. They needed Travis to come with them, but they didn't say why. Melissa insisted on going with them. Travis was taken to the morgue. He was told that Betty had been killed. She was strangled in a motel on New Year's Eve. It was suspected that she met her killer on the internet. There have been a series of murders of women who met men on Craigslist. A few days later, the family gathered to say goodbye to Betty. Despite how their marriage and relationship ended, Travis couldn't help but cry. Melissa was always there to help him hold it together as the family gathered to watch the cremation. No one spoke until Anastasia broke the silence. "What a waste," she said. Kevin agreed. If she'd kept her legs together, she'd still be alive. "If you called me sooner, I could have saved her," Anastasia said. "I could have turned her into a vampire like me." Everyone looked at Anastasia as if she were crazy. "Hey, Anna," Kevin said. "It's daytime. The sun is shining. I thought vampires couldn't stand the sun. I'm not a vampire yet." Anastasia snapped in the months following Betty's death. Travis moved on with his life. He returned to his home and moved in with Melissa. They married less than 6 months later. The following Thanksgiving, they all got together again for dinner at Travis and Melissa's home. Betty and Debbie's parents had to travel far. They sold their house and bought a motor home and traveled. Debbie arrived alone and looked fine. Melissa gave her makeup and style tips, and the two women became friends. Debbie divorced Kevin shortly after Betty's death when she caught him cheating.